The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Greetings, my name is John David Wells. What do we do here? Well, we report the news, honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We make commentary. That's not news. That's your opinion and mine. And so we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. Welcome to the Wells Report. Good to see you this morning. Specifically, I guess that would be the lovely Jesse and Yvonne. Welcome to the broadcast. Good to have you here. So, there's some interesting news regarding Target again. A while back, I don't know whether you're aware of this or not, but Bud Light had a disaster. Anheuser-Busch has been scrambling ever since to try to recoup $5 billion worth of market value. Not to set aside the incredible expense that they've had to try to remarket themselves in order to quell the backlash of an advertising campaign involving a drag queen. And Target is looking at that saying, oh, wait a minute, maybe we've gone over the line. But it's not for the first time. Target's gone over the line before. Years ago, Target, in a move toward inclusivity, invited transgender males, bio males, and any males that just happen to be around to use the female restrooms. And so now they're in a position where they are now confirming, according to Fox News, adjustments to the Pride merchandising plans underway after Fox News Digital learned it rolled back displays at some of its locations for more than a decade, says the statement from Target. Target has offered an assortment of products aimed at celebrating Pride Month. Since introducing this year's collection, we've experienced threats impacting our team members' sense of safety and well-being at work. Given these volatile circumstances, we're making adjustments in our plans, including removing items that have been the center or at the center of the most significant confrontational behavior. Our focus is now moving forward with our continuing commitment to the LGBTQIA plus community. You know, I used to take a little bit of abuse because what I would do is I would go LGBTQRSTUVWXYZ plus community. There's another letter every day. And what does it have to do with every day? Well, I'll get to that coming up a little bit later on. Anyway, getting back to this, our focus is now on moving forward toward our continuing commitment to the LGBTQ plus or IA plus community and standing with them as we celebrate Pride Month throughout the year. This, according to a Target spokesman. Earlier yesterday, Fox News reported that Southern Target stores were forced by the corporation to move LGBTQ Pride merchandise away from the front of their locations after customer outrage, and they did that to avoid a Bud Light situation. You know, strangely, there are video cameras everywhere in a Target store. How come we haven't seen any any videos of this so-called outrage? Just asking. I mean, they say there's outrage, but they also say, it's because of well-being and safety of our team members. Well, now, wait a minute. What about the well-being and safety of the customers? That takes us back to the bathroom problem. The restroom problem, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, where bio males were allowed to use the women's restrooms. There's a story here. Let's see, from Business Insider. Target is facing calls for a boycott. This, by the way, in case you're wondering, came from 2018. That's when this happened. Outraged shoppers threatened to boycott Target after a man exposes himself to a young girl in a store bathroom. What about their customers' sense of safety and well-being? Anything to that? No. Doesn't have anything to do with anything. Getting back to the story from Fox News. Target Pride merchandise includes female-style swimsuits that are designed to be able to help a bio male, look less like a bio male and more like a female. I'm not going to tell you what words they use. It's ridiculous. Products labeled as thoughtfully fit on multiple body types and gender expressions. A gender-fluid mug, a variety of adult clothing with slogans such as super queer, party supplies, home decor, multiple books, and a grow at your own pace saucer planter. What? Critics are particularly upset about Target Pride merchandise for children, which includes onesies and rompers for newborn babies, along with other apparel for kids of all ages. While many stores have made adjustments, Pride merchandise remains prominent at other Target locations across America and on the Target website. And so a Target insider told Fox News Digital that many locations, mostly in rural areas in the South, have relocated Pride sections to avoid the kind of backlash Bud Light has received in recent weeks after using a transgender influencer in a promotional campaign. A Target insider said there were emergency calls on Friday. Oh my God, emergency. That some managers and senior district directors were told to tamp down the Pride sections immediately. They were given 36 hours to make the changes. We call our customers guests. There is outrage on their part. This year, it is just exponentially more than any other year. I think given the current situation with Bud Light, the company is terrified of a Bud Light situation. No Freudian slip there. The insider said the emergency calls began roughly 10 minutes on how to deal with team member safety and included Target Asset Protect and corporate security teams because of the amount of backlash the Pride merchandise has generated. Once the safety instructions were over, Target honchos quickly urged managers to make changes to Pride display. Everyone was like, thank God, because we're all on the front lines dealing with it, said the insider. Fox News Digital has confirmed rural Target stores in South Carolina, Arkansas, and Georgia are among the locations to move the Pride sections. Rank-and-file employees left in the dark, many not knowing why the Pride sections would be moved until they noticed it themselves. Okay. So here's the situation, as I see it. This is just my opinion. Private corporations can do anything they choose. They can include anybody they choose in their marketing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't have any problem with any of that. I do have a problem with blaming outraged people for their marketing decisions. It has nothing to do with outraged customers. It has to do with the fact that they're trying to avoid a Bud Light situation and they're blaming outraged customers. What they should be doing is blaming themselves for making a huge deal out about something at something or about something. What they need to do is they need to fix the blame where it belongs. Going to a Target store is not about gender or sexual expression. Going to a Target store is about getting stuff for your house. and for yourself. Should that include transgender people? Sure. Should it be in front of the store under the label Pride? No, it shouldn't. You see, I don't think you should take pride, public pride, in who you snuggle up with at night. I don't think you should take public pride in essentially thrusting into other people's faces who disagree with you, wardrobe choices, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Especially wardrobe choices that are designed specifically towards sexual expression and gender expression. Believe me, none of this is my business, and I prefer it that way. I could care less what clothing you wear. Honestly, I couldn't. I could not care less. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of a fine arts guy. Throughout the centuries of human expression, there have been all kinds of wardrobe choices. Some of them are absolutely stunning. Some of them are interesting. Some of them are provocative. And some of them are political. And that's the issue here. Once again, Target is playing politics. What for? Is Target trying to get elected to something? No. They're trying to virtue signal. To who? To who? 0.06% of the population of the United States? That's a mighty small customer base. Why would you do that? If not, to prove to the rest of your customer base how enlightened and sophisticated you are. I don't shop at Target. I asked my wife not to shop at Target. I asked all the women in my family not to shop at Target after this tragic comedy regarding restrooms. There are a couple of different reasons why. Reason number one, I don't want my female family members to be attacked in a restroom or see genitalia they're not interested in seeing. That's thing number one. Or in the case of children, they shouldn't be seeing. That's thing number one. Thing number two, I worry about my own personal comportment should I happen to find some guy who just walked out of a restroom where, I don't know, a niece or daughter was in, who came out and said, that guy just showed me his junk. I would believe that I would take him in hand and explain in very basic and straightforward terms just exactly how big a mistake like that would be, which would create all manner of other things because, my God, that would be a hate crime. No, what that would be is a guy trying to essentially flash my wife being stopped from doing so. This is real easy. All this comes down to, and Target has proved it again, all this comes down to is stay away from our children. Stay away from our kids. Start being honest about your motivations. Stop lying to us. Stop trying to make us the problem. Those ridiculous rubes from the South just can't stand the sophistication and the inclusivity that we at Target believe is essential to American life. Excuse me? May I suggest that what you're doing is dishonest, ulterior, ridiculous, stupid, destructive, divisive, and not good for business. It's not good for business. Why would you chase 0.06% of the population of the United States in favor of trying to essentially virtue signal to 99.96%? I can't do math. Why would you do that? It makes absolutely no sense at all. This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 3 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. My mother gave me sage advice that I have shared on this broadcast countless times. It is, John David was and is. John David, mind your manners and keep your hands to yourself. The simple case about all of this is that thrusting your sexuality in a public way in front of people that really are not comfortable with it is inconsiderate and rude. At a base level, it's just rudeness. What people do after they're 18 years of age is totally up to them. Dance to your own drummer, by all means. You know, if you want to share your creativity, that's fine, right up to the point where you're sharing your sex life. And those people that believe somehow that in order to normalize their behavior are shooting themselves in various portions of their anatomy. Let me explain why. In order to normalize something, what you have to do is you have to essentially do what the LGBTQ plus community has been doing, which is to constantly, obnoxiously discuss your life. And eventually, after the outrage and so on and so forth, people go, okay, whatever. And then usually when that happens, when people go, okay, whatever, they've got to the saturation point and they really don't care who you snuggle up with at night, that's usually when you stop being obnoxious. But if you're juvenile and if you're possessed of some teenage mind, you continue to foist the point. No one cares about gay life in America anymore. No one who is not gay cares about it anymore. Constantly pushing it in front of us is annoying. And more importantly, it's just plain obnoxiously rude. Stop it. Stop it. Stop evangelizing for a bigger dating pool. By all means, live your life. Have a wonderful time. Enjoy yourself. Go right ahead. And if somebody wants to ascribe character issues to your lifestyle or whatever it is, whatever choices you make, there are two things you need to keep in mind. One, their approval is not necessary for your well-being. Two, maybe you're being frickin' rude. How about a little self-awareness? How about being considerate of others? How about doing some of those things? In other words, if you're tired of people treating you like a jerk, perhaps you should consider not being a jerk. And by the way, and I can't really emphasize this enough, stop going after our kids now. If, for example, you would like to introduce an 18-year-old, I would prefer it be 21, frankly, but 18 is fine, I guess. That's the age of consent in most places. If you'd like to introduce your life to somebody in that age group who is making their own decisions for the first time in their life, I can't stop you from doing that. But Jesse says Target has a shirt that says validation not needed. Oh, yeah? If validation isn't needed, how come there's a t-shirt that says validation isn't needed? Obviously there is. So not only are you obnoxious and rude, but you also think that everybody around you is an idiot. That is, what's the word? Short-sighted. Why don't you stop doing it? This is the Wells Report, back with more in just a moment. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will be back in 4 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 3 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. Our debate is cooking. The great Randy Floyd, one of the best blues guitar players in the world, just said this. I quit shopping at Target years ago when left-leaning politics prohibited the Salvation Army from ringing the bell and collecting pocket change for Christmas. They went further, eliminated support for faith-based leaning groups. Too many places to spend my limited money. Target gets none. By the way, in case you're wondering, Randy Floyd has a band. It's called the TVB. I've had the privilege of playing drums for Randy. And they're going to be playing on Thursday. I won't be there. But what I can tell you is that one of the greatest drummers who ever played at a set will be. His name is Facey. I can't remember his last name. But Facey is, whoa. He's one of the greatest players I've ever heard from a standpoint of drums. In other words, the TBB, the traditional blues band, is worth your time. And if you happen to be in Texas, specifically in Bedford, at a place called the Dream Tacos, run by a friend of mine, Chetra. That's his name. Go tomorrow night, beginning at about 7 p.m., the best tacos in the world. And I realize that typically tacos are saved for Thursdays. Tuesdays, Taco Tuesday. So I guess it would be Taco Thursday. But The best tacos in the world are at the Dream Tacos, appropriately named, by the way. They are delicious. Try the bulgogi taco. Oh my. Anyway, go there beginning at 7 p.m. and hear some of the best blues you'll hear anywhere. And yeah, one of the best drummers I've ever heard, if not the best. Facey's great. And he's going to be playing with the band tomorrow night. So whatever you do, make sure you put some time, if you happen to be living in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, to go to the Dream Tacos and listen to the band. You'll be very happy that you did. Okay. So there are major issues in this nation that are divisive. We just, Gary says, okay, look, bulgogi. Yeah, bulgogi taco. Yeah, bulgogi tacos. It's my personal favorite. The brisket taco is delicious as well. The guy who makes these tacos, you know how beautiful, sushi is. I don't eat sushi because I have a major problem with fish taste. It's psychological. It goes back to something that happened to me when I was a kid. Anyway, I have a problem with fish that fish taste, so I don't eat sushi. But it is some of the most beautiful food in the world. You ought to see these tacos. They're works of art, and they're delicious. Gary Olivier says, okay, do they have a chicken parmesan taco? Chetra's a friend of mine. He owns the Dream Tacos. I'll ask, because believe me, they can do it, and it would be delicious. As a matter of fact, Gary, if you show up tomorrow night to hear the traditional blues band with Facey on drums as opposed to me, why don't you suggest it? They'll probably make it for you on the spot. By the way, Jesse, who has also come to see the band when I'm playing and when other people are playing, chicken artichoke with lemon sauce tacos are so yummy. Yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, this is amazing. It's an amazing restaurant. So, Gary, when you go tomorrow night, if you go tomorrow night, by all means, ask for a chicken parmesan taco, and you might just get one. Sushi is just art, not food. You know what I like? I like I'm not putting down anybody's food choice. I'm not. But the situation goes like this. Terry Bradshaw of the Fox News football telecast, the NFL football telecasts, got a piece of sushi in a commercial or something like this and pointed at it and said, "This is bait." Yeah, because apparently fish don't care about fish taste, and okay. Yeah, really, a friend of mine said, "John, you've got to start eating sushi. It's delicious." And it was and it remains just one of the real good ways to feed yourself. I just can't do it, man. I remember biting into something wrapped with seaweed and trying not to throw up, trying not to retch. You know how, we were talking about manners earlier today. You know how no matter where you are, no matter what's going on, you eat what's put in front of you if you're a guest at someone's house? Well, I hope I'm not at someone's house at some point where they serve sushi. By the way, there have been notable times in my life where, say, for example, someone has put Brussels sprouts and asparagus in front of me, both of which, to me, I hate to say this, both of those foods taste like sewage to me. And no, thank you. But I went to a couple of friends' house, and they served me asparagus, and I sat there with a smile on my face and I ate it. Gary Olivier says, "God, you're a baby." Yeah, I am. There's certain things that I have real trouble with, but if I'm served them in someone else's house when I've been invited to dinner, I will eat them dutifully with a smile on my face and go, yum, yum, because it's polite. And if I happen to retch or throw up or something like that, I'll just say, "I got an upset stomach." Yeah, it's an upset stomach. Yeah. All right. So, like I said, division is part and parcel of politics. If you can divide a populace along any kind of line, it makes it makes the it makes the it makes it easier to, say, for example, win an election because you only have to convince half the voters as opposed to convincing all of them. You know, even in my particular avenue of professional endeavor, radio, it's possible to have conversations about anything on the radio without involving the kids. Being able to communicate at that level is something I take great pride in because we can have wonderful conversations right in front of children and they have no idea what we're talking about. And everybody's giggling except the kids, and they think we're talking about something else. It's real simple. It's artful. I take a lot of pride. I do a lot of thinking about how to communicate in a way that actually matters. And you can talk about anything you want to in a polite way without offending someone. And goodness gracious, if you fall short of that particular communication standard, you can modify your behavior and modify your language, like not talking about something. Anyway, back to where we were. Division. Division is part and parcel of life in the United States. It's destructive, it's hurting the nation, and you know it. Now we're dealing with something called reparations. Reparations are theoretical in the fact that the reason for these reparations is because of slavery in the United States that ended 150 years ago. No one in the United States right now is a slave. No one in the United States right now is a slave owner. And a descendant of slaves running for Congress, by the way, is calling on President Biden to give qualifying Black Americans $2.8 million in reparations for the lasting effects of slavery. There are two reasons for this idea that there are lasting effects. Lasting effect number one, slavery is different than bigotry. Bigotry is a crime against humanity. It absolutely is. It's one of the basic crimes against humanity. If you dismiss somebody by the way they look, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. You are someone who is literally rude, crude, and socially unacceptable. What's the matter with you? People are people. Judge them by the contents of their character. Judge them by their actions. Don't judge them because of a physical attribute of any kind. I mean, it's like I said, it's idiotic. Now, that's different than, say, for example, reparations for slavery. In point of fact, after slavery was declared illegal in the United States by a Republican president in 1863, there were reparations. It was 40 acres and a mule. Can you imagine 40 acres and a mule? That was an opportunity to own land. Did racism take away that opportunity in many cases? Yes. But that's the crime against humanity. That's a different crime. If reparations are all about slavery and the lasting effects of slavery, let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at the lasting effects of slavery in the United States of America. Are they external or are they internal? Are they internal? At some level, in my view, and this is just my opinion here, and you can disagree if you want to. And by all means do. If you have a disagreement, call me. 817-379-2172, or you can call me, or you can join the 40 acres and a mule did not happen. Okay, let's look that up. That was from Mr. Love 825. 40 acres and a mule. 40 acres and a mule. 40 acres and a mule. Let's see. That's PBS. That's not a credible news source. Let's see. So now what we have to do is we have to go back through the revisionist history to find actual fact about 40 acres and a mule. Let's see. Let's see. Here's something that may be. It's encyclopedia.com. 40 acres and a mule, a phrase echoed through the South in the aftermath of the Civil War, asserting the right of newly freed African Americans to redistribute lands, particularly those plantations confiscated by U.S. troops during the war. Let's see. As compensation for unpaid labor during slavery. Historians trace the phrase to General William T. Sherman's Special Field Order Number 15, issued on 16 January 1865, which set aside a 30-mile tract of land along the South Carolina and Georgia coast for former slaves and promised the Army's help for securing loaned mules. In addition, the Freedmen Bureaus initially was authorized to divide abandoned and confiscated lands into 40-acre tracts for rental and eventual sale to refugees and former slaves. Despite the efforts of radical Republicans during the Reconstruction period. Radical Republicans? Well, okay. So once again, encyclopedia.com is biased. Let's see. Despite the efforts of radical Republicans, you mean Southern Democrats? Because I happen to actually witness Southern Democrat racism in the South when I was a kid. I actually know what I'm talking about here. I am. Anyway, despite radical Republicans, no, those would be Southern Democrats. Significant land redistribution measures ultimately were abandoned. Virtually all Southern lands were returned to white owners. The resulting sharecropping system left the social and economic structures of slavery essentially intact in the South. Essentially intact in the South. Okay, so that's revisionist. Let's keep moving. So, once again, the United States government, after the Civil War, did indeed offer land to refugees and freed slaves. That's what you can take out of that. The rest of it is politics. Let's see. Here. Here's North Carolina State University. Let's see what that is, although it's university. Let's see, where did it come from? The plight of black farmers in America is shocking. Okay, that's going to be biased. We just need real history here. Just facts. And so the only facts we've gotten out of this so far is that indeed the U.S. military, under the command of William T. Sherman, did set aside land and mules for freed slaves and refugees. Let's see what else here. Let me see if I can keep doing this. All right. So there we go. I'm now going through the first entire page of this and finding propaganda. Let me see if I can find something else. Sooner or later, there will be some kind of real objective history, and we'll be able to work this through. Anyway, the point of the matter is this. The Sherman Act did not cover the entire nation. No, it covered the Confederacy. Why wouldn't it cover the enlightened north of the Mason-Dixon line? Why in heaven's name would that not be the case? This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more coming up in just a couple of moments. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Okay, there you go. All right, here we go. So I found a bit of real history, and I want to share it with you. Somebody was castigating me for saying that the information on 40 Acres and a Mule was I was going through. I was doing a search on that. And what I found was a bunch of revisionist propaganda. And that person accosted me and said, no, you just are finding information you don't like. I found some information here. Okay. This, by the way, comes to us from the New Georgia Encyclopedia. On January 16th, 1865, during the Civil War, Union General William T. Sherman issued his Special Field Order number 15, which confiscated as Union property coastline property stretching from Charleston, South Carolina to the St. Johns River in Florida, including Georgia's Sea Islands and the mainland 30 miles in front of the coast. The order redistributed 400,000 acres of land to newly freed black families in 40-acre segments. Sherman's order came on the heels of his successful march to the sea from Atlanta to Savannah, and just prior to the march northward into South Carolina. Radical Republicans in the U.S. Congress, like Charles Sumner and Thaddeus Stevens, there's the propaganda again, for some time pushed for land redistribution to break the back of Southern slaveholder power. Feeling pressure from within his own party, U.S. President Abraham Lincoln sent his Secretary of War, Edwin Stanton, to Savannah in order to facilitate a conversation with Sherman over what to do about Southern planters' lands. Sherman and Stanton met with 20 black leaders of Savannah, mostly Baptist and Methodist ministers, to discuss the question of compensation and emancipation. Lincoln approved a field order number 15 before Sherman issued it just 4 days before the meeting with black leaders. A Republican president approved field order 15. It served as meaning of providing the thousands of black refugees, some 40,000 in fact, who had been following the army since the invasion of Georgia. He could not afford to support or protect these refugees while on the campaign. It called for the settlement of black families on confiscated lands, encouraged freedmen to join the Union Army to help sustain newly won liberty and designated a general officer to act as inspector of settlements. So, in other words, yeah, there was some 400,000 acres set aside for black families in the United States that had suffered slavery. And then there's this from the White House. With the assassination of President Lincoln, the presidency fell on an old-fashioned Southern Jacksonian Democrat of pronounced state rights views, an honest and honorable man. Andrew Johnson was one of the most unfortunate of presidents. Arrayed against him were radical Republicans in the Congress, brilliantly led and ruthless in their tactics. Johnson was no match for them. Johnson, not Jackson. Andrew Johnson was one of the most unfortunate of presidents, a Southern Jacksonian Democrat who then rescinded Field Order Number 15, approved by his predecessor, Abraham Lincoln. So the radical Republican idea was not so much. The guy who rescinded Field Order 15 was a Democrat. And so, once again, the real history is illuminating. That's why I'm talking about all this propaganda garbage. I thought that what the New Georgia Encyclopedia said was fair. I think that's fair. By the way, in case you're wondering, let's see. Let me read this whole paragraph. Sherman's radical plan, I don't have a lot of time. Sherman's radical plan for land redistribution in the South was actually a practical response. Sherman never had been a racial egalitarian. His land redistribution order served the military purpose of punishing Confederate planters along the Rice Coast for their role in starting the Civil War while simultaneously solving what he and Republicans viewed as a major new American problem: what to do with a new class of free Southern laborers. Congressional leaders convinced President Lincoln to establish the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands on March 3rd, 1865. Shortly after Sherman issued his order, the Freedmen's Bureau, as it came to be called, was authorized to give legal title for 40-acre plots of land to freedmen and white Southern Unionists. The immediate effect was provided the settlement of 40,000 Black Americans, refugees, and locals who had been under Union Army administration in the Sea Islands since 1861. It lifted the burden of supporting the freed people from Sherman's army as it turned north to South Carolina. The order was short-lived. Despite the objections of General Oliver O. Howard, the Freedmen's Bureau chief, U.S. President Andrew Johnson, a Democrat, overturned Sherman's directive in the fall of 1865. So the first opportunity that the U.S. government had to provide a new land and a new life for freed Southern slaves happened almost simultaneously with the end of the Civil War, and was turned aside. The 40 acres and a mule was turned aside by a Southern Democrat. Was that a mistake? Sure was. Sure was. But it comes down to this point. That was 150 years ago. It's over. This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more coming up in just a couple of moments. Once again, thanks very much for being a part of our broadcast. See you in a second. Thanks for listening to the Wells Report, more of which continues in 6 minutes. You found the Wells Report, more of which continues in 5 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will be back in 4 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 3 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. North to south, coast to coast, around the world, this is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. We report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. In short, we depropagandize news. We give you facts. We move on to commentary, which is just opinion, yours and mine. And so we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. Tell your friends, please. And if you'd like to support this broadcast, go to Patreon. Float me a little cash. You can do it. It's okay. It's helpful. But man, I've only got like a couple of bucks. That's fine. That's fine. If everybody who watched and listened to the Wells Report would float a couple of bucks, I'd make, what, 40, 50 bucks, something like that? It's awesome. So going back to the chat room and the debate part of the broadcast, so let's talk a little bit about the person who said, hey, wait a minute, you're just getting information you don't like because of all the propaganda regarding 40 acres and a mule. Isaac says, less than a year after Field Order 15 from William T. Sherman, President Andrew Johnson intervened and ordered that the vast majority of confiscated land be returned to its former owners. That's exactly what he did. And everybody says, those darn Republicans. Well, except that Andrew Johnson was a Democrat, a Southern Democrat, in fact. So they were called radical Republicans because they wanted equal rights, including voting rights for blacks. Correct. And by the way, the 3/5 thing in the Constitution regarding black people, the slaves, they were being represented in Congress. That was about the first appropriation or the first work to represent the people living in this land that were essentially property. As hard as it is for me to say that, because I find it disgusting that one person would own somebody else, but okay. At the time, it was legal. It is a blight on the American history. It's horrible. It's a crime against humanity. And like unto it, bigotry. Not only is it a crime against humanity, it's just plain stupid. Just plain stupid. My parents raised me in the South with this very simple understanding of people. Everybody has something that they can teach you. Everybody. Anyway. So continuing, talk about propaganda. Topic about a propaganda piece. The humble and honorable man, Andrew Johnson. Okay, if you think that's propaganda, Isaac, then go to the White House, because that's where I got that. That's where I got that. This from the White House. This is the official White House history. With the assassination of Lincoln, the presidency fell upon an old-fashioned Southern Democrat of pronounced state rights views. Although an honest and honorable man, Andrew Johnson was one of the most unfortunate of presidents. That's the White House talking. That's not John David. That's the White House. So if you got a problem with that, well, there you go. And so there we go. The debate was, did they get 40 acres and a mule? For a moment they did, until a Southern Democrat turned it aside. It was given back to Confederates. Okay. You wrote Black history. Let's see. You wrote Black already got reparations, and I didn't write it. I actually said it. For a moment they did. And it was turned aside by a Southern Democrat. So let's put this in perspective. Let's put this in reality. Should they have gotten 40 acres and a mule and kept it forever? Oh, hell yeah. You know, my dream is to own 15 acres of land of Texas. I'd really like to have that. 40 acres and a mule? The only thing I'd ask, the only change I'd ask is, golly, I'd rather have a donkey instead of a mule. Donkeys are cool. Mules are kind of dumb. Just saying. Let's see. And the 3/5 compromise provided representation for Southern slave states. Slaves were not represented in Congress. No, actually, that is incorrect. It wasn't for Southern slave states. Southern states already had 100% representation in Congress. That was for the slaves. And that was turned into somehow I'm 3/5 of a man. That's propaganda. 3/5 of the slaves were represented in Congress. They got congressional seats. Now, were they represented fairly? No. Why? Because of the insufferable bigotry of the South among Democrats, mostly. But there were Republicans involved in that gang of idiocy. And this is the reality. This is what is twisted and warped in this revisionist idea that somehow the people that are currently living in the United States are to be blamed for what happened in the United States legally 150 years ago. And the government of the United States, even though I am a Southern man, the government of the United States should have won, and indeed did win, the Civil War. Because at the very root of the Confederacy was this stain of bigotry, was this totalitarian rule of others. It was pathological, leading to its own demise, and that demise should have happened. And it did. And the first act, even before the war was over, was to provide reparations for those slaves. Again, turned aside by a Southern Democrat president. Now look, did Black Americans in the United States have a tough road? Yeah. Arguably, they still do. But the simple case of the matter is this, is that bigotry in the United States has turned from being a crime against humanity to a political tool, which, by the way, besmirches the actual sin of bigotry in the United States and turns it into nothing more than a lever to push people around with. People that are innocent in most cases of it. I don't have any bigoted friends. Not one. And I'm just one of a vast majority of people in the United States that don't have bigoted friends. That story doesn't get told in favor of the propaganda that does nothing more than to harm we the people, e pluribus unum, of many one. Everybody is represented in the United States. Everyone, of all racial and national backgrounds, of all religious backgrounds. All of us are. America is not about equality of outcome. It's about equality of opportunity. There have been people that had slavery in their family history that have succeeded beyond anybody's wildest dreams. And not just recently. Anybody remember Frederick Douglass? So we morph bigotry into slavery for the sake of politics. We bring this 150-year-old stain up to the present time for sake of political leverage. Divisive political leverage. E pluribus unum. Of many one. Did everybody get the same opportunity? No. That's the problem. Does everybody have the same opportunity now? Yeah, more than ever. Did America react to the sin and try to fix it? Yes. Did politicians blow it? Yes. Should we continue to allow them to blow it? No. How do you do it? Stop electing politicians. Stop. And of course, the politicians go, "Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. If we get rid of politicians, what's going to happen? It'll be a disaster. It's an emergency." If we actually live to the ideology of the Constitution and Bill of Rights, it will remove the political power of politicians in favor of we the people. Not we the white people, not we the defined downtrodden minority. We the people, all of us. It's right there. A few pages of parchment in the National Archives. It's right there. Blacks received voting rights for only 60 years of the country's recent history. Complete history is needed. 60 years. Let's see. Go back 60 years. That would be 1973. You know, crazily enough, I saw an awful lot of black people voting in 1973. In 1973, we had just gone through racial upheaval in the 60s. Most people, most genuine Americans, turned away from racism as being stupid and ridiculous. No, you're going to have to go back farther than 60 years, Isaac. And then you're sitting there saying, well, what about Jim Crow? Well, that's bigotry. Nothing more, nothing less. It's bigotry. It's a crime against humanity. It was the biggest, horrifyingly crazy thing that the Supreme Court ever did. But I think you quoted that was what? Was that 1857 Dred Scott case? Yeah. Roger B. Taney said that blacks were not citizens, they were property, and were not intended to be protected by the Constitution. Well, that was a damaged statement by a damaged man. Blacks are in the Constitution of the United States. That first apportionment of seats in the legislature. Once again, was Roger B. Taney some kind of political dictator? No. He was a flaming bigot. Was he a slave owner? Likely. But while we don't have slavery in the United States, bigotry is far more recent and far uglier, except from a standpoint of people believing that they could own other people. It's a crime against humanity. It's divisive. And in the case where we stand now, that division is being used as a political tool instead of something as a point to heal from. This is the Wells Report. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 3 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Telephone number 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Chat room rollicking. So let's say, let me go back to here. Isaac Tate, U.S. history teacher, says Democrats in 1830 were not the same as the 1960s. Why do Republicans protect Confederate statues and leaders? Well, for the same reason that Democrats memorialize sins of Republicans. In fact, just outright lying about it, as we have found out today on the Wells Report. The reason that Republicans protect Confederate statues is to continue rubbing the noses of the Southern Democrats who put them up in the first place of their crimes against humanity. Even the ugly part of Democrat history is history. It deserves to stand as a monument to the bigotry of that political party. They're the people that put that stuff up in the first place. The Lost Cause was a Democrat project, not a Republican one. And so, I have protected Confederate statues in Texas, not because I believe in slavery, not because I believe in bigotry, because I believe that the revisionism of Democrats now going back, realizing, oh my God, those statues are monuments to our bigotry. We've got to take them down, which is the real reason. I happen to believe they should stand. For the same reason that there are all manner of other monuments castigating Republicans, I believe that those monuments should stand to castigate Democrats and remind them and remind others who listen to Democrats talk about the bigotry of Republicans that they had it first. And while slavery is a crime against humanity that is obsolete in the United States, bigotry is not. It's a crime of humanity that thrives and lives to this day. In my view, the people that are pushing this agenda, this divisiveness between black and white in the United States, those people are doing so for the sake of politics and nothing more. It's damaging the nation. They should stop. And once again, it proves as a poignant and absolutely essential monument to reality. It didn't take long for me to come up with this. I went to the White House to get some of it. And this is stuff you don't hear. Why not? Well, it doesn't serve the political imperative. Why are we teaching it to our kids? Doesn't serve the political imperative. Yeah. So this just moved in here. This is something that just came up. A little bit of politics coming up. Ron DeSantis is on Twitter going to announce that he's a candidate for the 2024 presidential election. I found a tweet. On Twitter today that I responded to. I'm going to respond and tell you what I responded to regarding that in just a couple of moments. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. I want to thank you very much for being a part of our broadcast. Telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Why don't you join us? I sure would appreciate it if you would. You can also be on the chat room. I'm spending a lot of time with it. And we'll be back with more in just a couple of moments. Thanks for being here. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will be back in 4 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 3 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. Excuse me. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. Got to turn your mic up, JD. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. Greetings. My name is John David Wells. Yeah. Last week, in an attempt to provide just a little bit of political accountability, Florida Representative Anna Paulina Luna filed a resolution to expel Representative Adam Schiff of California, formerly the top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, from the Congress, alleging he had pushed a false narrative to the American people during the Trump-Russia investigation. Quote, Adam Schiff lied to the American people. He used his position on House Intelligence to push a lie that cost the American taxpayer millions of dollars and abused the trust placed in him as chairman of the Intelligence Committee. He is a dishonor to the House of Representatives. That happened last Wednesday. Republicans like Luna have been vocal that lawmakers should face the consequences for the report after the Durham report found significant FBI failures and no evidence that Donald Trump's campaign was coordinated with Russian influence during the 2016 presidential campaign. Well, she's not finished. This just came out moments ago. Representative Anna Paulina Luna, what a beautiful name, by the way, introduced a resolution that would fine Representative Adam Schiff of California $16 million for his claims that former President Trump colluded with Russia to win the 2016 election. Luna says that amount is about half the cost of the federal investigation into alleged Trump-Russia collusion, which was debunked by special counsel reports from both Robert Mueller and John Durham. Let's see. As people may have noticed, my math is incredibly shaky, but I'm sorry. If that's about half of what the Mueller investigation cost, that would be what, somewhere around $32 million? $32 million? Aren't the pundits and the propagandist media complaining about the fact that the Durham investigation cost $6 million? I'm just asking. Just asking. Luna said that $16 million, which is a fine that she's proposed against Adam Schiff, is about half of what it cost to run the Mueller investigation. And then said this, quote, the GOP conference agrees that Adam Schiff, that's Adam Schiff, not Adam Schiff, Adam Schiff has betrayed the trust of the American people, purposely abused positions of extreme authority, lied continuously, and as such must be held to account. Accordingly, the resolution requires Representative Schiff to pay a $16 million fine, half the cost the American taxpayers were forced to pay for the Russia hoax investigation. And let's see who this is. This is the wrong. Greetings. This is the Wells Report. May I help you? Hello? Hello? Okay. So that was somebody that was calling on the wrong line anyway. So there you go. By the way, our telephone number 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Okay. So 16 million, is that right? Is that a good thing? Is it proper for Adam Schiff to be first removed from Congress and then second fined $16 million? Let's talk about that. Let's spend a little bit of time with that. First of all, Adam Schiff was elected by the people of his district in California more than once. That says more about the people of California in Adam Schiff's district than it says about Adam Schiff. That's thing number one. To be expelled from Congress for lying to the American people. What do you think? I'm ill at ease in removing somebody's representative, even if he is a scumbag. By the way, I'm not saying that Representative Schiff is a scumbag. I'm using that as a generic term. Whether you believe Adam Schiff is a scumbag, whether I believe he's a scumbag or not, is meaningless. God, I love allergies. It's meaningless. The only people that should care one way or another whether Adam Schiff is a scumbag are the people who continually vote for him. And maybe they vote for him because, as if you do believe that Adam Schiff is a scumbag, perhaps the voters of his district actually did elect the right guy because they're scumbags. Okay, just pointing it out. All right. So, wait a minute, I moved too soon. So let's talk about the $16 million. I don't believe that people in Congress should be expelled unless they've done something of a criminal nature. You know, with a president, an impeachment is high crime and misdemeanor. Do I believe that lying to people in the United States by a politician is a high crime and misdemeanor? It certainly is a crime. As far as being a legal term, part of a misdemeanor, well, you know, that's for legal minds, not mine. But I don't believe that lying is a crime. It's wrong, but is it a crime? So in other words, as we must define what a high crime and misdemeanor is for the removal of a president, I would say breaking the U.S. code. I mean, if you're gonna impeach somebody, maybe that person should be a criminal as opposed to just someone you don't like politically. That might have been a mistake in the Constitution, but then again, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking. But the $16 million fine, first of all, Adam Schiff would not have to pay that out of his personal fortune, which is vast. He'd have to pay that out of his political contributions, which is essentially a redistribution of wealth from a Democrat under the auspices of a Republican for the sake of what? Money redistribution? I'm not a big believer in redistribution of other people's money. But on the other hand, some accountability must be raised. So no, I'm not disagreeing with Representative Luna that Adam Schiff should be at least considered for expulsion from Congress. And I'm not disagreeing that a $16 million fine isn't completely appropriate in this case. What I'm saying is there aren't legal mechanisms to pull it off. So while this I believe is a a worthy enterprise that she's putting out these resolutions, I doubt they're going to go anywhere. But there has to be some kind of accountability, because this was a crime against the United States of America. Let's see, hang on a minute here. Something just flashed. Something just flashed. Something just flashed up here. Let's see. Here we go. There is breaking news from NBC. Alex Murdaugh, the convicted murderer and former South Carolina lawyer, has been indicted by a federal grand jury on additional charges, including 22 financial fraud-related charges, including that he cheated his late housekeeper's estate and insurance carriers out of millions of dollars, according to prosecutors. Okay. So getting back to what we're talking about here. Adam Schiff. Should Adam Schiff be fined? Yeah. Is there any way to do it? Not that I can see. Should he be expelled from Congress? Personally? Yeah. Yeah, personally, I think that Adam Schiff should be thrown out of Congress because he is a liar. And his lies were exquisitely damaging to the United States and contributed to what is the cause celeb these days, interference with the 2020 political election. Just my 2 cents. Speaking of political elections, let's talk a little bit about the next one. Tonight on Twitter, somewhere around 6 p.m., Republican Florida Governor Ron DeSantis will officially enter the 2024 White House race. Sources familiar confirmed to Fox News that the popular conservative governor will declare that he's a candidate for president tonight, 6 p.m., during a conversation with Elon Musk on Twitter. Now, I saw a tweet today that I responded to. And what I want to do is I want to share that with you. Let me see if I can get this done here. I normally don't do this. Yeah, I normally don't do this on I normally don't do this because it's kind of sketchy. Okay, so maybe I'm going to have to use my phone, because the difference between Twitter on your computer and Twitter on your phone is quite different, in fact. So let me go back over here. Sorry about this. Let's see. No, that's fun. All right. What it was a tweet from someone who, and let's see, tweets, replies. Let me see if it's under replies. Let's see. No. Boy, that was a good tweet, though. That was really good. Anyway, I can't find it now, but what I'll do is I'll paraphrase it. Someone was complaining about Ron DeSantis as a guy who, for whatever reason, was a guy who had backstabbed President Trump by running for the presidency in 2024. And I said, no, that's not what's happening. Ron DeSantis is not stabbing President Trump in the back after President Trump's support for him during his run for governor in Florida. Ron DeSantis is competing. Ron DeSantis is competing for the presidency of the United States. And all of us want that. Do we want Ron DeSantis to be the president of the United States? I don't know. I don't have any idea. Only the people of the United States know. That's what elections are for. But what I will tell you is that the competition between Ron DeSantis, who is 40 points below President Trump in popularity polls, is good competition for President Trump. And assuredly, President Trump is good competition for Ron DeSantis. Tim Scott is also in that mix. There are others. Nikki Haley is a declared candidate. She's good for it. None of these people are stabbing Donald Trump in the back. These people are competing for your vote. And we want that. We want that a lot. There's an old saying, iron sharpens iron. It's true. Competition is the crucible of excellence. Some brilliant guy came up with that quote a long time ago. Oh, wait, that was me. That's my quote. Competition is the crucible of excellence. Ron DeSantis, in his campaign, will make Donald Trump better. Or not. Donald Trump's interactions with Ron DeSantis and everybody else, Tim Scott, will make those other candidates better as well. One of the great self-correcting issues and factors of the United States is that competition, as opposed to just political arrival, is how we elect our presidents and other people in political life. And this will be a competitive and serious push toward the nomination of the Republican Party and then the presidency. And that's good for everybody, including the country. And so, those people that say, my God, Ron DeSantis is a terrible guy, stabbing Donald Trump in the back. No, you're missing the point. One of the, a perfect presidential candidate, according to the Republican Party, Mitt Romney, who was a perfect presidential candidate, represented everything the Republican Party wants in a president. Nobody elected him. He didn't get elected. And the reason he didn't get elected is because people, after seeing a prototype Republican, rejected him. But he did say something that was brilliant. And that's this. Politics ain't beanbag. It's true. Politics is a tough business. It requires tough people. Ron DeSantis isn't stabbing anybody in the back. Ron DeSantis is a tough guy. Running up against another tough guy. Up against another tough guy. Up against another tough guy. That would be Nikki Haley. You're listening to the Wells Report. We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment. Jeez. My computer is so funny. It's truly annoying, in fact. That, by the way, that little piece of music, I can't tell you because I don't have the rights to it. But I'll explain later. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to The Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Telephone number 817-379-2172. It was Isaac, because I got him on my iPod, iMusic. Yeah. The problem with it is when I play one of these beds, when I play some of this music, the computer thinks that I'm asking for music from Apple Music. I'm not. I don't have rights to that music, so I don't play it because I'll get in trouble with the powers that be. But yeah, he's in my iPod, along with a bunch of other music that might surprise you. Okay, stop talking about it because I can get in trouble, Isaac. Come on. With Democrats, David Aronakis, one of the most brilliant men I know. With Democrats protecting the giveaways for votes that they passed in the first 2 years of the Biden administration, they have reasons for wanting to keep power, which is in itself sick and disgusting. I agree with you, sir. Simple case of the matter is that people who lust for power should never, ever have it. Republicans can't get their messaging straight at all. And maybe a shutdown would be a good thing because the majority of checks going out are for Biden giveaway supporters. That's one point. That's one way of looking at it. Yeah, that's one way of looking at it. What I would also say is this, sir, is that we're $31.7 trillion in debt. Until the people of the United States demand that their government do something about it. By the way, Isaac then says, hey, David Aronakis. Trump gave away $4 trillion during COVID. Right. He sure did. $4 trillion. What is, since I'm lousy at math, as you pointed out earlier today, Isaac, what's 31.7 trillion minus 4 trillion? Would that be $27.7 trillion? What else? Anything? Loans to Trump friends, MTG, and others who are not required to pay it back. Do you know why? Because they're campaign funds. One campaign can give funds to another campaign. They can't be accessed by the candidate. Those funds can't be accessed. Thank you, Martha. I figured it out myself in my head. Ha ha. Look. The fleecing of the people of the United States is bipartisan. It's not just Democrats. It's not just Republicans. It's politicians. The wrong people are running our country. The infusion of politics into everything, baseball, hockey, everything, is turning people off. James Robertson, what are you doing? Trump added $27.7 trillion to the debt, says Isaac. Okay. How much did President Obama add? How much has President Obama and President Biden added? It's north of 7.7 million. Like I was saying, you seem to want to see it only one way. $31.7 trillion worth of debt is a bipartisan project. Period. And the people of the United States must demand that their government do something about it. Do something about it. By the way, Isaac points out that President Obama spent $8 trillion. Yeah, true. It's hard to get actual figures on how much President Biden has spent. Isaac says that President Bush spent $4.4 trillion. Like I said, it's bipartisan. Yeah, there was a little thing called, what was that? Oh, yeah, the 9/11 attack. By the way, during the Bush years, by the way, actually, President Bush spent more than $4.4 trillion. He did. I believe it was a $5 trillion reorganization of government after 9/11. So I think that it may be right because they talked about it being $5 trillion. It may actually be $4.4 trillion. But like I said, this is a bipartisan aspect. This is a bipartisan problem. It's because we keep electing politicians. We have to stop electing politicians. We have to stop allowing politics to infuse our schools, our sports, our lives, our nation. Stop electing politicians. Now, that doesn't mean that people who are currently politicians can't turn away from it and become human beings again. But look at what happens when there are real human beings elected to Congress. The first thing that happens is the politicians start ridiculing them and ruining their lives. There's a reason they do that. And that, by the way, happens in both parties. Politicians, politics. George Washington hated politics, hated political parties. And he was right. Not just the father of our country, but the very wise and sage father of our country. This has been the Wells Report. I want to thank you very much for being a part of it. I thought we got a lot done today. Am I the only one? Join us again tomorrow as we bring you another edition of the Wells Report. That was fun. That was fun. I really enjoyed that. Did you enjoy that? I thought that was really, really good. We all got to learn something today. God bless all y'all. Take good care. I got to get to work. One of these days I'll have to tell you a story that will impact this broadcast, by the way, at some level. Okay? So, I mean, in a good way, by the way. So we'll talk. Thank you, Isaac. Thanks for your contributions today. Thanks for keeping it real, just like you've always said. Isaac Tate keeps it real. I appreciate it, man. I do. Appreciate your contributions. We disagree, but I really appreciate you. I do. All right, I got to go. Got to get to work. Busy. Have yourself a great day, okay?